What is a toxic trait? Welcome back to After Hour Happy Hour. We are your chaotic but cathartic co-host. I'm Vicky.
I'm Jamila.
I'm Sharon.
And today we're going to talk about toxic traits. What is a toxic trait?
Are you going to look up the definition, Sharon? Sharon's about to look up the definition.
You can define it.
Well, off the top of my head, I would say things that are like red flags for me, right? Things that I would be hesitant about a person because it might be bad for myself. That was a horrible definition. Someone look up a definition.
So I looked it up last night. I don't remember word for word, but toxic traits is basically when you're always criticizing or putting down whoever you're talking to, whether it's your family, your friends, and not only bringing negative energy to whoever you're with, but to a point it could make them feel bad about themselves.
Wow.
See, that's like the correct dictionary definition, right? It's just a quality or trait that is just toxic in an environment. But then also a part of me, when I think toxic traits, I don't know why the thought of Gen Z pops into my head.
Oh.
People laugh about toxic traits, but when you think about it, they kind of do some crazy things, but it's like almost normalized because it's in a joking manner. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like the whole thing that we talked about how a girl leaves her lipstick at a guy's place to see how the guy reacts to it and stuff. That's, I guess, considered a toxic trait, but people also laugh about it.
I think it's like a lack of trust in the relationship, and so people teach you things to do in a relationship so that you could test that, and then it becomes normalized. But I was also thinking about cancel culture.
Do you guys think toxic traits come from a place of insecurity, or why you guys think a person is toxic?
For sure, insecurities. Maybe bad parenting, not bad parenting, but maybe your parents didn't give you something, or your parents taught you a certain standard of love, but then it's not actually love, it's actually toxic. But because you grew up in that environment, you think that's what love is, or you think that's what showing love is, and so it becomes a trait that you have because your parents had it. Does that make sense?
Obviously, kids learn from their parents first. So if their parents already have these toxic traits or these toxic tendencies, I could see where the kid could get that from. But in the case where, you know, the parents are more normal, I'm not saying parents aren't normal. I'm just saying in the case where parents do not have those traits, then I agree with both you guys where I think toxic traits do come from a place of insecurity and jealousy.
I think less of how you grew up and more so your insecurities or things that you lack. So, for example, if you're passive aggressive, maybe it stems from you don't know how to communicate or you can't communicate well, so you project it as passive aggression.
So if you're ever in a toxic relationship, it's never your fault, it's the other person's fault. They need some therapy.
Unless you're the toxic person.
That's true. Which is a great segue. Okay. That's a great segue to our next question. Do you think you have toxic traits?
Okay, I'll go first. Maybe I have other toxic traits that I don't know about, but this is the one that I realized about myself, and it's specifically towards friends. It's not often. I think this was more so just a brief period in my life, but this was 2018. Basically, I have falling through with one of my really close friends that I've been friends with since 6th grade. And at that time, I just thought that perhaps we're really different people and we're just doing different things. We're heading towards different directions. And I think I would also call it with my own life with what I was doing, that I never took a step backwards and see how she was doing. I was kind of being the person, why aren't you keeping up with me almost? In that moment, I really didn't realize it. And I just kind of, let the friendship fade and just thought, some friendships stay, some friendships go. But after that year, as I did more self-reflection, I realized that I was completely in the wrong, that I was really selfish in the friendship, and the whole time she was the person that was being really selfless and really caring about our friendship when I just almost threw it to the side. And I've said things and I've done things during that period that I'm definitely not proud of, and I'm like, I feel really, really sorry that I said any of those things. So afterwards, we made our amends and we're fine now. It was just that friendship that I really realized, oh, I was a toxic friend during that period, and that's something I would never ever want to do to anyone else, it just made me feel really shitty about myself. Like, how could I think that it's okay to be that type of person?
So it wasn't in a, oh, our friendship's just not the same anymore. We just don't talk as much. It was certain things that you said or did that you realized you shouldn't have in the first place.
Yeah, I was just like being like a really, really bad friend. I think in that entire summer, like she was also going through a really tough time, and I was just being so selfish and basically not really like caring about her.
Mm.
So
But you guys did resolve a lot of things afterwards, right? Now,
yeah, so going to our third year slash fourth year, I reached out. That's why I did my self-reflection, and I know I fucked up real bad. So I reached out, and obviously it took a while for her to open back up, which totally makes sense. I, did something wrong, and it's hard to build that trust again. Like once you kind of break that trust, it's really hard to build it up again. But we've been trying to do that, or like we've been doing that for the past like 2-ish years. So we're back on good terms. We both understand each other better now, and it's like a new chapter in the friendship.
that's good. Sometimes you gotta go through some shit times, man.
That's what makes friendship stronger.
True, but I really wish didn't have to go through any of that, or she didn't have to go through any of that for us to realize, or for me to realize that our friendship is strong. Obviously, what I did was not great.
I do give you props for self-reflecting and reaching back out. I think that's very admirable, to think back to the friendship and say, I value it so much and let me apologize and actually try to fix it, versus, doing all of that in your brain and just moving on. So good for you.
Yeah, for anyone out there, if you realize you're a toxic friend, even if you can't amend the friendship, at least apologize, or express that you did wrong to the other person, because whatever the outcome is, I'm sure the other person will appreciate that you realize it at least.
Facts. Sharon's like, am I toxic now? Let me think.
It's because my answer was more how am I toxic to myself and less, I guess, in friendships. So I was trying to think about the friendships part, but for the me part, I was looking up like what are some toxic traits, right? And the common categories are like manipulation or controlling or passive aggression. And I like to think I'm not any of those, but one that did stand out to me was negativity. And I try not to project negativity, but I know what goes on in my mind. And a lot of times I feel like I have a poor mindset going into things or people in general. So that is like a toxic trait, because my first instinct shouldn't be, oh, why isn't this going to work out? It should be, how can I make things work? Or how can it be a good scenario? Or the glass is half full kind of person. In the past, I definitely was a glass half empty kind of person, but it's definitely something that I've been trying to work on, and I think it's gotten better in the past, maybe like a year or so. But I would say negativity is a toxic trait of mine. I want to know if people on the exterior can feel that, so that way I can work on that too.
I was about to say I never felt that, because you said you've been working on that for the past year or two, so I'm guessing your freshman year and your sophomore year self, you were still a little bit more of the glass half empty type of person, but I definitely never felt that. I always thought you were a really optimistic person.
Well, that's good to know.
You were right by saying it is a toxic trait to yourself, because I can see you doing it to yourself, but never to the people around you. If a friend approaches you with an issue, or if they have issues, you're never glass half empty with them. You're always thinking of both sides. But then with yourself, you're definitely a lot harder and a lot more glass half empty and expecting the worst and planning for all of that.
Yeah, kind of going off of does that stem from insecurity? I would say yes. I've talked about this in the past, but like fully being confident about yourself or about myself is something that I've always kind of lacked. And so I could see why, because of that, it leads into a toxicity of negativity. So I'm working on it.
That's good.
Dude, I feel like, especially our generation, the whole self-deprecation thing as jokes is very, very toxic on ourselves, because a lot of people, myself included, we joke about like, oh, I'm so freaking dumb. Wow, that was so dumb. You make kind of jokes about certain things, but in reality, a small part of you does believe it. And over time, it kind of ingrains it into your head that, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Oh my God, I only have one brain cell. I think it's funny when people do that. it's still something that I do want to be aware of, that it could potentially leave more of a impact than I thought.
The thing is, I do that all the time. I joke about it, but I never felt that. I say I feel like I'm dumb as shit, but I know I'm smart as shit. So
Oh, nice. I like that. I like that. I like that. I was gonna say, see, in some situations, I'm like, oh, why does that look so bad? Or, oh, I can't do it. But then I do it and I'm like, I know I can do it. Or I know it looks good. So why is my first instinct to be like, oh, I can't do that? Or, oh, that doesn't look good. I think that's where the disconnect happens in my brain, where I'm like, you know you can do it. So why do you self-deprecate first? Just
I think
do
it's
it.
also you're overthinking this.
Ugh.
When you overthink, it's natural to take out the negative parts of things.
Yeah. 2021.
I feel like we all kind of touched on the concept of a personality trait that's toxic. I have a physical toxic trait with my significant other where I don't even know if I want to say it because none of my exes know I do this and I feel bad. But okay, let me explain what I do. So something that I do is I read through their phone without them knowing. It's bad and good. It's not from an insecurity. It's from a I'm very curious person. And so I read through their phones, and it's not like they don't let me. They trust me. They leave their phones. They tell me their passwords. They give me access to it. And you know how certain people, they just don't care, but I want to know, so I do. But the thing is, whatever I find out on the phone, it never affects the relationship. Like, I've read some kind of bad things before. I'm like, okay, that's them with their friends. I'm gonna disengage from that, and I shouldn't have known that in the first place. I don't let it affect our relationship, but I think I'm smart enough where I kind of ease it into a conversation so that they bring it up to me, and so I could see how they actually feel when we have the conversation. I don't know, that's kind of toxic, but
Wait, like you go through just their texts or pictures or
just everything. Like notes, images, all my relationships, we kind of just look through each other's photo albums all the time. Texts, that's kind of bad.
like when does this happen? When they're in the shower or
Yeah, like when they're in the shower or when they just leave their phones with me. They know I'm on their phones. I tell them, oh, I'm going to play on your phone. And they're like, okay. And I just read through things and then I clear it to see, so they don't know I was in their text message.
I never would have guessed that you did that.
Yeah. I stopped doing it in my last relationship because I felt really guilty in the one before. It's not like a lack of trust. I was just super curious what was being said about me. Because they would tell me, oh, I talked to my friends about you. And when I asked them what, they'd be like, just, guys talking. And I'm like, I want to know now. If you don't tell me, I'm just going to figure it out myself.
So it's not an insecurity. You just
even when it comes to cheating, I have the mindset of if you cheat, that's your loss. It doesn't affect me as much as it would suck that someone is cheating and it's something that I fear. In the end, I don't think it would be like, oh, is it because I'm a bad person or is it because I'm not good enough to be in this relationship? It'd be like, you fucked up. You decided to cheat and you went out and found someone else. I don't have that mindset of it being a negative thing about myself.
But I mean, like you said, you kind of straight up tell them that you're gonna do it. Not like I'm going to look through your phone for X, Y, and Z, but more so, if you don't tell me, I'll figure out myself. I don't think it's necessarily toxic because it didn't come from a place of bad ill or
intent.
Ill intent. Bad ill.
Bad ill intent.
But at the same time, I could see from a guy's perspective, why are you like looking through my phone?
Yeah. That's why I'm like,
Yeah, we could call it a toxic trait.
We're just not toxic people, guys.
I suck,
Yeah,
though.
honestly.
I swear. Do you think you have a crazy side, though?
No.
At all? Oh, I
I
definitely.
don't think so. You're talking about in a relationship, for example, right?
Yeah.
When that whole thing happened with
Yep. Moving on.
when I found out that while me and him were talking, he not hooked up but got physical with another girl, I could have been extremely petty or literally aggression on everyone, including him and his friends or whatever, right? But I think I took it very logically, and I did tell him off pretty much, but not in a toxic manner. So because of that instance, I like to think I don't carry some crazy side of me.
I don't think Sharon can be crazy either.
I think you're too
Yeah.
logical. She maybe has the thoughts and then she's like, wait, let me rethink
No,
that.
but like even let's say in a scenario, not even for me, but someone, let's say they're insecure about certain things, like physical traits or physical qualities. I never understood it when people would be like, tell me I'm pretty or tell me I look good. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's
Like in
people
a
who do
very
that.
serious manner.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I just, no, that's crazy. But I'm curious, do you guys think you have a crazy side?
I 10 out of 10 do. Yeah. I okay, it's not that I act on it, but I have the thoughts of it. I know I have the potential to be petty. When I say that, it's not like, let me leave my lipstick in his room to see if he acts sus and stuff, right? I don't even know how to explain it. It's more so, it's like, do I want to fight about this right now, or am I just gonna shut down type of thing?
That's not toxic.
Yeah.
I feel like my toxicity level is very low because I think current standards for toxicity is too low. Like people's tolerance for toxicity is too high. There we go. My tolerance for toxicity is low, like very, very low. Like once you have one small thing, I'm just like, bro, that's not okay. Does that make sense?
Yes?
No.
Jams doesn't go.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is my tolerance for toxicity is very low versus I feel like current standards for toxicity and how their tolerance for toxicity is really high. So for example, people almost always excuse a lot of things just because when you look in social media, there's crazier things happening. But then for me, whatever level of toxicity there is, I still question it all the time just because I'm very adamant on being in a healthy relationship.
But where's the 10 out of 10 crazy coming from?
I'm someone who is like, this is so bad because my friend always makes fun of me for saying this, but there's moments where I'm like, wow, our relationship is healthy. Should we fight? Is there I think that's where the insecurity comes from, where it's like, I'm waiting for the rug to get tugged out under me, so let me control it. In my last relationship, I did this, not in a toxic way, but I'm just like, oh, are you happy? Like, are you okay in this relationship? Like, what's wrong? Even though it seems like everything's okay, but I just want to make sure just so I have control in that aspect. And that brings up fights and stuff because it's like, why are you questioning it?
Is that an insecurity then? Like, oh, I haven't been in that many healthy or good relationships, so this must not be true or this must not be real?
I don't think it's in a relationship. I think it's just knowing that life is never that smooth sailing. So I want to be in control of when something bad's going to happen. So instead of waiting for it, I pick it up and ask for it, which is bad. That's very toxic.
So yeah, half of me is like laughing and half of me is concerned. Or like not super concerned, but
I think it's a mixture of control issues, always needing to know the worst case scenario and always needing to know when it happens so that I can fix it immediately instead of waiting for it to like surprise me.
I'll give you that one. I'll give that a toxic level of I won't rate it, never mind. Jam, do you have a toxic trait in a relationship or crazy side?
I haven't been in one in really long, so I really don't know. But I like to think that I'm a more matured person now. Like, homegirl's almost 23, so I don't think I would be toxic.
I'm just crazy!
Did you have any before then that you could think of? It doesn't even have to be a relationship. It could be someone that you had a thing with or talking to.
I don't think so. Do you guys think I did?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because it's not that I talked to anyone for long enough to really develop anything more.
It's not toxic. It's just things that any person could go through in
Yeah.
a relationship. So I wouldn't say toxic.
You know what's really interesting to me, and this is what I learn the more I grow up, is people are so different in friendships than they are in relationships. And that is very terrifying to me sometimes. And I've seen super healthy people in terms of relationships with friends, but then once they get into a friendship and they tell me about, or once they get into a relationship, I see a whole different side of them, which is super toxic, and I'm like, whoa there, what just happened, and where is this coming from? Because you're such a healthy person before to me. So to wrap it up, let's do some advice to handle toxic traits. What would you advise, let's say, a friend that comes to you and asks, like, I'm in a toxic relationship or something? What would you say to them?
I think I would be pretty honest about it. and maybe not directly say you're in a toxic relationship, but prompt certain questions that hopefully they can come to the realization that they may be in a toxic trait and yeah, get out of it. Oh, sorry, is that too blunt?
No.
Get out of it.
Oh, I'm just thinking, if you're coming to me for advice, you'll hope that I'm giving you honest advice and not sugarcoating everything, and also that you're trusting me enough to give you advice. So tell you, I think you should get out of it and list X, Y, and Z reasons.
Yeah, I agree with that. But also, I think toxic things range. We kind of touched on it before, where it could stem from yourself and also the other partner you're with. And so I think I would ask yourself, oh, why do I think this is toxic? And kind of prompt questions on, oh, how toxic is your other relation and is your partner, and see if it's even worth working through. If you feel like it's hurting you more than it is helping you, then get out of that relationship.
I just realized that if people are in maybe a toxic relationship, one, they may not know that they're in a toxic relationship because of the bar that they have for themselves, which may be low. Two, they probably should prioritize working on themselves first prior to giving themselves to someone else in a relationship. Okay, that sounds very, not literally physically giving yourself, but devoting time and energy towards someone else when you should probably prioritize your growth and development first.
Actually, I want to correct my answer a little bit. I would like to be more straightforward and blunt with my answers, because I feel like in the past I have perhaps seen it happening to my friends, but I wasn't as straightforward or as blunt about it. I mean, obviously what happened is between those two people, but part of me just feels like, oh, if I've been more straightforward and to the point, perhaps that person would have gotten it sooner. But that's only to certain people, to people that I feel close enough to that I could do that.
Yeah, or come to you and ask.
I guess general advice for people who don't know if they're in a toxic relationship or in one and kind of like questioning back and forth is talk to people, because it is easy to be blinded by love. So if one, you're hesitant to talk to a friend or someone that you respect and can seek advice from, that says a lot about your relationship if you're hesitant to kind of talk about your situations, because a part of you is like, oh, it might sound bad.
But okay, now that I'm thinking, if two people are in a relationship and it's a toxic relationship, doesn't that mean that both people to an extent are toxic?
A little bit, like toxic to yourself.
Yeah, because then I guess someone else can make the argument of, no, I was just blinded. But then at the same time, I could make the argument that maybe your toxic trait potentially could be letting these things happen and feeling like that's the best you deserve. So maybe toxic relationship is a mutual thing. This goes to show that the three of us have not been in toxic relationships. So good for us.
So I don't know why we're trying to give advice on toxic relationships, because none of us been through one.
True.
Maybe take our advice with a grain of salt. Sorry. Okay, with that being said, let's wrap it up before we give horrible advice.
So that was our conversation about toxic traits in ourselves, in relationships, in friendships, etc. Let us know if you have any toxic traits, and that's it for today. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.